Hello, my name is Kirsten Carpenter-Ortman, and I'm the choir director at Ralston Valley High School, and this is Shades of Blue. So this is our advanced auditioned choral ensemble at Ralston Valley. So we'll start with Carol of the Bells. Hope you enjoy.
Hark how the bells, sweet silver bells, all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old. Take in the fun, ding dong, that is the song. With joyful ring, all caroling.
One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, they come raising the sound, Lord, and dear brother, hey, while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here, ding dong, that is the song. With joyful ring, all caroling.
Dawn without end, tear, terrible tongue, to everyone. Dawn of the bells, sweet silver bells, all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old. Big and the fun, ding dong, that is the song. With joyful ring, all caroling.
One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, they come raising the sound, Lord, and dear brother, hey, while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here, ding dong, that is the song. With joyful ring, all caroling.
Dawn without end, tear, terrible tongue, to everyone.
Dawn on this end, dawn without end, tear, joyful tone to every home.
Ding dong, ding dong.
Bong.
All right, again, if you are just joining us now, we are from Ralston Valley High School. This is Shades of Blue. The next piece on our program is Deck the Hall.
Deck the hall with boughs of holly. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Holly come la, jolly ancient Christmas carol. La 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 la.
Sing the glory down before us. Joy of harp and joy of I sing of beauty's treasure. Bless away the old year, my Laughing all together. Laughing all
together. Heedless of the wind and weather. Deck the hall with boughs of holly.
So we're going to switch gears here. This next piece is called T'Chaka. It is in Haitian Creole, and T'Chaka is a Haitian dish. So it's sort of a stewed pork dish. And basically the song is talking about cooking, eating, being together, the joy of togetherness, and how when we come together to eat and cook, we dance, we sing, and spread love, peace, and justice. So we hope you enjoy T'Chaka. Again, if you're just joining us, we're from Ralston Valley High School. This is Shades of Blue.
Nous prenons T'Chaka. Nous prenons T'Chaka. T'Chaka musical. Music sayo se kampalaga. Music sayo se kampalaga. Chanter la paix, livrer la justice, pays sur toute la terre. Nous proclamer l'espoir et nous chanter la paix, livrer la justice, pays sur toute la terre. Continue chanter, non justice la mer, à nous manger, 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 non justice la mer, à nous manger, T'Chaka, manger,
Thank you for listening today. Again, we're Shades of Blue from Ralston Valley High School. We will finish today with Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire, featuring a solo by Harrison Peanut.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose. Do Yuletide carols sung by acquaintance, dressed up like Eskimos, and everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe, they help to make the season bright and old.
Tiny tots with their eyes aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight.
They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh. And every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. So now I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Do you? Oh, it's been said many times anyways. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Christmas. Christmas to you. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
I would like to call this meeting of December 14, 2023 to order. Roll call, Ms. Zavada.
Miss Applegate,
Here.
Miss Kenworthy,
Here.
Miss Parker,
Here.
Miss Reed,
Here.
Dr. Varda.
Here. I'd like to also give a special thank you to Kirsten Carpenter-Ortman from the Ralston Valley High School Vocal Music Director and our Ralston Valley Shades of Blue Choir. It was an amazing start to a meeting. It's hard to imagine anything topping that, and we always love to hear our students perform. I'd also like to thank our live simultaneous Spanish interpreters for joining us tonight, and we are live streaming our meeting. I'd also like to acknowledge that board member Dr. Daniel Varda is joining us tonight virtually so that we don't all come down with whatever she's got. Thank you, Dr. Varda. Would you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic on which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda?
I move to approve tonight's agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objection? It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for the board meeting of December 14, 2023 as presented. Roll call, please, Ms. Zavada.
Miss Applegate,
Yes.
Miss Kenworthy,
Yes.
Miss Parker,
Yes.
Miss Reed,
Yes.
Dr. Varda.
Yes. The agenda is approved. Every month, the Board of Education has the pleasure of recognizing students, staff, community members, and schools for their achievements and contributions to our community. Additionally, the board publicly recognizes special events and significant issues by issuing proclamations. In the month of December, we are commemorating National Special Education Day and National Computer Science Week. We encourage you to read the Jeffco School Board proclamation, which can be found as part of the consent agenda in the board docs. Now we will move on to honors and recognitions. And for our first recognition of the evening, I will hand it over to Director Kenworthy.
Thank you, President Parker. For our first recognition this evening, the Board of Education is pleased to recognize our 2023 Arts Integration School Award winner, Belmar School of the Integrated Arts. We invite the Belmar School of Integrated Arts team, including Meredith Lighty, to the front of the room to receive the Jeffco Thrives Award. Awards given by the Art Schools Network honors member schools and individuals as well as communities for a commitment to and demonstration of excellence in arts education. Award winners are recognized at the Art Schools Network's annual conference. A winner of the 2023 Arts Integration Award, Belmar was honored for demonstrating leadership and bringing arts integration strategies into the curriculum. They were lauded for an outstanding record and commitment to implementing arts integrated curriculum across different grade levels. Arts integration is an approach to teaching and learning through which content standards are taught and assessed equitably in and through the arts. By integrating arts into Belmar's core curriculum, the school ensures that students have the academic skills and knowledge to be successful, living their core values of celebration, creative problem solving, growth mindset, integrity, and perseverance. Belmar School of Integrated Arts develops creative, curious, and courageous learners. Please join us in recognizing the Belmar Integrated School of the Arts team. We honor you for creating the extraordinary experiences students need and deserve today and helping our district achieve its vision for the Jeffco Public Schools to be a thriving district where all students achieve their biggest dreams. Thank you. And now I'd like to turn this over to Director Applegate.
Thank you, Director Kenworthy. The Board of Education is pleased to honor and recognize Jack Schwartz and Lexi Smith, students at Ralston Valley High School that were selected to represent Colorado in the Great American Marching Band at the 2023 Macy's Day Parade. Lexi and Jack, do you want to come to the front? So I'm personally very excited about this because the Thanksgiving Day Parade is a major part of our tradition in my house. And this Thanksgiving, we got to watch you all. So Lexi and Jack from the Ralston Valley High School Marching Band had the honor of traveling to New York City to represent the state of Colorado in the 2023 Macy's Day Parade as part of the prestigious Great American Marching Band. The Macy's Great American Marching Band is created uniquely for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and since its debut, the band has become a high-honored tradition that brings together the finest musicians from high schools nationwide, complemented by approximately 30 color guard members and 9 dancers. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is internationally recognized as the official start of the holiday season and world famous as a uniquely American entertainment tradition. The audition process opened in January of 2023, and selections were based on a written online application and live auditions via YouTube. Only the most prestigious musicians were selected, as the slots are limited by both instrument type and by state representation. So let's give a huge round of applause for both Lexi and Jack for being selected to represent the state of Colorado and Jeffco Public Schools as part of the Great American Marching Band at the 2023 Macy's Day Parade. We're so proud of you both. All right, and now I will turn it back to President Parker.
For our next recognition, the Board of Education is pleased to honor and recognize Sun Rustline, North Area Athletic Complex Jeffco Stadium Manager, for providing safe and successful extraordinary student experiences on the athletic field. Sun, please make your way up to the front of the room to receive the Our People, Our Strength recognition. Sun, along with her co-stadium manager colleague, Christy Clay, who is unable to be with us tonight, manage the day-to-day logistics of Jeffco's North Area Athletic Complex, or as most of us know it, the NAC, in Arvada. The NAC property is 14 acres and is the home field for 6 North Area Jeffco schools: Arvada, Arvada West, Pomona, Ralston Valley, Golden, and Stanley Lake. Plus, schools like Green Mountain, Wheat Ridge, Evergreen, Conifer, and others frequently call it home for soccer matches as needed. As certified sports field and stadium managers, this dynamic duo handles everything from turf management to renovations and more. Sun and Christy provide countless essential services that ensure consistently safe and successful athletic seasons for Jeffco athletes. In the words of Sun, quote, "All the work is done before the gates open, so when fans or players walk in for a football game on Friday night, they don't know that it's Christy and I who have painted the field that week, or fixed irrigation, or cleaned bathrooms, or any of those things, because it's all done," end quote. Where families, players, and fans might take an event for granted or be disappointed by their side's results, the real victory for Sun and Christy is not just an even playing ground, but the most pristine, safe, reliable playing ground every time. Please join us in celebrating Sun, NAC Stadium Manager. Thank you for your years of service promoting safe environments and extraordinary student experiences for Jeffco Public School athletes and spectators. And now I'm going to pass it over to Director Reed.
Thank you very much. All right, for the final celebration of the evening, the Board of Education is pleased to acknowledge the partnership of the Jefferson County Economic Development Corporation with two of our Jeffco high schools, Green Mountain High School and Lakewood High School. Jansen Tidmore and Tyson Noeth from Jeffco EDC, as well as school leadership from Lakewood and Green Mountain Senior, Josh Shellard and Daniel Bach, are here with us to be recognized for this incredible collaboration benefiting Jeffco students. So if you could please come forward. The Youth Leadership Program, designed and hosted by Jeffco EDC, stands out for the opportunities it offers Jeffco students to explore career paths and opportunities in their own backyard. The program consistently delivers high-quality content relevant to our students and aligned to what they are learning in the classroom. Building on the resounding success of its inaugural year, Youth Leadership Jeffco is entering its second year in partnership with Green Mountain and Lakewood. The program has successfully evolved and adjusted to meet the needs of Jeffco and its partner, the EDC. This year, the program is benefiting from improved logistics and communication and collaboration with school leaders and staff who support the program. One reason for this is the extension of program days to 6 hours, which allows students to fully immerse themselves in the experience. Thus far, through this unique program, two cohorts of students have had the opportunity to interact with local businesses and expand their leadership capacities. In Jeffco, we aspire to be a world-class school district, and that requires us to maximize our partnerships. Please join us in celebrating the Jeffco Economic Development Corporation, as well as the Green Mountain and Lakewood High School staff, for their commitment to ensuring that all Jeffco kids graduate from Jeffco with the knowledge and skills needed for post-secondary life.
A sincere thank you to all of our recognition honorees this month. It is our pleasure to honor you for your commitment to our community. Now we will turn to public comment. This is a time for the community to share their thoughts with the board. For the first portion of public comment tonight, the board will hold the statutorily required community meeting regarding the expedited charter application from Jefferson Academy to serve the Coal Creek Canyon community starting in the 2024-25 school year. The opportunity to speak on this topic is offered prior to the board's vote on authorization on January 10 and is designed to allow the Board of Education to obtain information to assist it in its decision regarding the application contents as prescribed by CRS 22-30.5-106 and SS 22-30.5-1072. At this time, the board will also listen to public comment on any topic. There's a 3-minute time limit per individual speaker. If there are 4 more people who sign up to address the board, they will have 10 minutes for that group's view to be presented. Each speaker has been given a number. The board invites you to come up in order. When the person before you completes their comments, you may step up to the podium. We listen with respect and ask those who address the board to do the same. Will the person with the first number please come on up? Please state your name and where you're from. Thank you.
Hello. All right, hi. My name is Kim Cameron. I am a resident of Coal Creek Canyon, a mother to a 3rd grader attending Coal Creek Canyon K through 8, and have been working with others in our community to keep the school open in whatever form works best for us, right? First, I want to thank the newest members of the board for being here and listening with an open mind to what Jefferson Academy is proposing. I stand up here today in full support of the proposal to replicate JA in the current Cold Creek Canyon K-8 facility. The creativity on display with Super Fridays and creating an inclusive learning environment for both traditional and homeschool children is some of the most creative thinking that I have seen in all my years of being in corporate offices, being in environments like this. It is truly amazing and so refreshing, right? I, among other families, toured JA and Woodrow Wilson to learn more about core knowledge and what that really means. I can tell you I am so enthusiastic about my child's potential learning path now than I have been in a really long time. You can see how, when we're talking with others in the community, how invested JA is with us and we are with them. There is this wonderful rumble of conversations happening at the Christmas tree lighting, at Santa coming to visit the dogs and the children, and all of the holiday fairs that we're hosting locally throughout the canyon. There is excitement. We are talking about it. We are anticipating it. It is wonderful to be a part of. As we move closer towards the final vote on JA's proposal, I hope you are as encouraged and optimistic about this opportunity as are us in the canyon. From families to business owners to newcomers, along with the old timers, we want our community to thrive and grow, and this can't happen if there's no school function. Lastly, I would like to acknowledge the district and its willingness to agree to provisions requested from JA specifically to make this financially realistic and not just a theoretical idea. It has been a series of unfortunate decisions to close schools, but it is my hope that these district agreements are an indication of better things to come for our community and for this school. I stand here today as a representative for my family, my school, my community, and as a hopeful future JA family to ask and thank you for your thoughtful consideration of their proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2, come on up. Please state your name and where you're from.
Yes, hello. My name is Jordan Scott, and I'm from Colorado Springs. And I came from Colorado Springs tonight. I was asked to come here to speak on behalf of educators who asked me to be here, educators who are frustrated and afraid to speak out against transgender ideology being implemented in schools. These educators are very concerned about what they heard take place recently, where a student from your district was placed in an unsafe situation due to policies you have implemented. Transitional decisions are made at the school level, not the athletic level. It's because of Jeffco policy that the Wales family, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, had their child placed in an unsafe situation that could not even be truthfully discussed on a school-associated athletic trip recently. If we look at Jeffco policy, we see hidden in the EEO, or Equal Opportunity Education section of the district policy in regard to student transition, quote unquote, notifying parents carries risk for the student, such as being kicked out of the home. Prior to notification of any parent or guardian regarding the transition process, school staff should work closely with the student to assess the degree, if any, the guardian will be involved in the process and must consider the health, well-being, and safety of the student in transition. When a student elects to transition during the school year, the school shall hold a meeting with the student and parents, provided they are involved in the process, to ascertain their desires and concerns. This subjective social trend destroying the minds of our youth and destroying families needs to stop here. I'm going to say what many of us won't. What you're implementing in Jeffco schools and taking part in is evil and nothing more than a deception. Let me remind you, you're all going to be held accountable to God. Make no mistake, teaching kids that they can be born in the wrong body in the name of inclusion is the root of the problem. These kids come here, these families send them, and they trust you. Not only do they trust you to implement the right things while they are here, but they count on you to oversee and take accountability for school outings connected to this institution. Why are you only pandering to one group's claims and then scorning those who operate in reality to the point where they have to call their parents because they feel uncomfortable? Have you ever considered the students who are uncomfortable with a biological male being in a female space? It's abusive to put kids in these situations, and this will be stopped one way or another. You have at the very least broke the trust of these families, and you owe them an apology. Instead, you shift blame when you know very well that you force feed this to kids in school on a daily basis, and you all should be ashamed of yourselves. You have participated in a corruption of the basic institution of learning. Your allegiance is to education, not policy handed down through an administration that is destroying this country. You have a decision to make. I pray you make the correct one and you start reconsidering these policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3.
Good evening, esteemed Jefferson County School Board. For our newly elected board members, let me introduce myself. My name is Joe, and I'm a director for the LGBT&T nonprofit organization Gays Against Groomers. I live here in Jefferson County with my husband and our son, and as such, I'm speaking with authority as both a member and a parent of the LGBT community. I'm here tonight to address policy JBR1 and clarify how your policies based around emotion instead of actual science are detrimentally affecting our children. To help you out on the science part, I have brought some facts with me so that you cannot claim ignorance anymore. There are only 2 sexes. There always have been and there always will be. When you allow a child that is going through puberty to sleep with another child of the opposite sex, it creates an opportunity for nature to set in. Your policy creates an opportunity for a child to be raped, and very well could have happened if this girl didn't speak up. Gender dysphoria is a very serious psychological condition. I do not make light of this or what the other child was going through. Depending on the study referenced, your number will vary slightly, but the article I will reference, 84.9% of trans individuals have experienced physical or sexual abuse leading to their transition. If we apply the cycle of abuse theory to this situation, this means your policy more than likely aided a victim and could have become a perpetrator, continuing a vicious cycle. So I will be clear. A child or adult should never room with another child of the opposite sex. It does not matter if they identify as male or female. Your policy might be well-intentioned to protect a child going through a very serious psychological issue, but does not justify hurting innocent bystanders. That is not transphobic, it is common sense. Something this board clearly lacks. As 1 in 4 females will be sexually abused before they turn 18, this policy is absolutely unacceptable. We at Gays Against Groomers denounce this policy. We stand with the rest of the parents here tonight to say enough is enough. We call for immediate action to revoke this policy and replace it. The new policy should be as follows. Children attending an overnight school-sanctioned event shall only room with children of the same sex. Students who suffer from gender dysphoria may request a private room at their own expense or choose to forfeit their trip. That is fair and that is inclusive. Anything short of that is just a violation of Title IX and one of the many reasons why every parent should disenroll their child from Jeffco Public Schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Number 4. Please state your name and where you're from.
Hi, Bryn Brody. I'm right here from Lakewood, 2351 South Braun Way. I'm a suicide prevention trainer. I helped Ms. Michelle Gonzalez get the school trainings up and running. I'm also a queer parent who has 1 child left to graduate. I'm concerned that our children are in danger. I'm concerned that we're not keeping them safe. Student safety is directly related to parental rights and the discussion on trans children in sports and classrooms. As a public school parent, I have the right to have my child prepared for the public world outside of the school district. As a parent, I insist his classrooms and sports teams accurately reflect the larger world, including the right trans and non-binary people have to exist and take up space, so that he is prepared for the world when he leaves the safety of my home. I hope someday my 14-year-old steps away from that gaming system to get a full-time job. If he does, he's going to encounter non-binary and trans people, and he needs to know how to act. It's my parental right to have my child educated on correct behavior around trans and non-binary people so that he can hold on to that job, because I do not want him living in my basement. He needs to understand actual biology, which is far more complex and lovely than the binary some people wish were true. It's my right as a parent to have our school district instill real American values. I want my child to see that we take care of people in this country. Patriotism means everybody is free to live their truth, free from harassment, fear, and physical and emotional violence. I demand that my school district respect every student so that my child understands that that's what we do in this country. When we go out into the world, we take our best selves, which includes allowing people, celebrating people when they explain who they are. In order to protect all children, we have to prioritize the most vulnerable because that's the only way to keep everyone safe. I want my child to understand he does not have the right to tell people how they should walk or talk or dress or think or live. Because in a country that prides itself on being the land of the free and the home of the brave, nobody gets to determine for anybody else what their truth is. And if our school district really cares about parental rights, about raising good and safe citizens for the future, you will enshrine in our bylaws the fact that students have the right to participate in schools under the gender that they tell us they are without forced outing. You will enshrine in our bylaws the fact that students have the right to be called by their names and the pronouns they tell us without fear that they will face violence at home or school because our district spread misinformation, which you have yet to publicly retract. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 5.
Hi, my name is Joshua Brunswick. I am a student at McLean Community High School, and I live in Jeffco. I have come here today to simply advocate for the emotions and the feelings of trans and LGBTQ+ students. As a student who myself has been a president of the GSA club at McLean, and I identify with the LGBTQ+ community myself, I would like to say that many of these students, that these students have very valid emotions and very valid feelings, and we should respect them, we should allow them, we should encourage them. Well, these feelings, if they are not encouraged and expressed properly, could lead to detrimental effects on the emotions, developmental processes, things like that, of these trans and gender nonconforming students. I think it is very important that we allow these students a safe and comfortable space to exist and to learn. And if we don't allow that, it could be, bad for our whole student community. I know that many people are concerned about trans students staying in quarters that they do not biologically conform to, but I would like to express that many of these cases, are with young kids. Like, I read an article about the girl who had to stay in the same bed as a trans girl, and these are kids. I mean, if you're worried about sexual assault or things like that happening amongst such young students, I feel like we have other concerns other than just how the students choose to identify. As a person who has known many trans people in my life, I just want to advocate for them and express that they are people too. We are all people, and we should all respect and love each other and treat each other just as equally. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has signed up for public comment? Okay, with that, we will move on. For our first agenda item this afternoon, the board will hear a status report on the expedited charter application process launched in September 2023 as part of Phase 2 of Regional Opportunities for Thriving Schools. Tonight, we'll hear from the Executive Director of Charter Partnerships, Tayo Adiko, who is leading the expedited application process, as well as the sole applicant to serve the Coal Creek Canyon community, Jefferson Academy. As a reminder to the board and our listening public, on August 24, 2023, Coal Creek Canyon K-8 was recommended for closure as the final phase of regional opportunities for thriving schools. At the October 12, 2023 board meeting, the board approved a staff recommendation which included the closure of Coal Creek Canyon K-8 as specified in the resolution. In response to the unique community and geographic location of Coal Creek Canyon, the district launched an expedited charter application. This agenda item will be briefly introduced by Dr. Adiko and followed by a presentation from Jefferson Academy. Before I hand this over to Dr. Adiko, Superintendent Dorland, is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, President Parker. I would like to thank Dr. Adiko and Mr. Weiss for the work that they have put into this process, especially given that it's been expedited. I do want to thank our partners at Jefferson Academy for their interest and commitment to our Jeffco community and to Coal Creek in particular, and really working closely with us to consider this option for our community in the Coal Creek Canyon area. With that, I will be handing it over to Dr. Adiko.
Thank you. So we are here to give the board an update on the district's exploration of an educational option for Coal Creek Canyon. This was a process that was initiated by the Regional Opportunities for Thriving Schools, particularly the Phase 2 vote in October 2023. As part of that board resolution, the board determined and directed the staff to initiate an expedited charter application process specific only to applicants that were interested in opening a charter school that would serve the Coal Creek Canyon community as early as August 2024, which is codified in LBDR2. And as such, if the board in January approves a charter school to locate in Coal Creek Canyon, then Coal Creek Canyon K-8 will close July 2024. Or if the board decides not to approve a charter school application in January, then Coal Creek Canyon K-8 will close July 2025. And the middle schoolers will have an opportunity to attend JRLP next year. So as a result of our expedited application window, we did receive one application for a charter school to serve the Coal Creek Canyon community. And that was an application received from Jefferson Academy, one of the district's oldest and highest performing charter schools. And they submitted an application to replicate their educational model in Coal Creek Canyon. So here's a little bit of a summary of the process that we have been facilitating. It started with a letter of intent submission window, and then we released the application, and applicants had between September 29 and December 1st to complete the application, and currently we are in the district review process. So that's the timeline of the letter of intent window, which concluded with the board vote on ROFS Phase 2 in October. And here's where we are in the review process. This week, we have had multiple review meetings, including the district review team. The Coal Creek Canyon K-8 Welcoming Committee also had a meeting where they reviewed the application and gave feedback to the applicant and to the district. And then this morning, we held a capacity interview with the applicant, following up on questions that came up during the review window. Next week, the superintendent will publish her recommendation on the submitted application, as well as the DAC's recommendation. They've been holding multiple meetings to review the application. And then this entire process will accumulate in January with your vote. We just wanted to let you know who was part of the district application review team. and it includes teams from internal central services teams or experts, subject matter experts across central services, including finance, special education, curriculum and instruction, our legal department, and planning and facility management team. As well, we also, in addition, we also had an external reviewer who is an expert in charter school authorizing. You may be wondering how this all ties into Enroll Jeffco, considering that the Enroll Jeffco window closes 2 days after your vote in January. So in partnership with our Enroll Jeffco team, we have created a school option in Enroll Jeffco that's just called generally Coal Creek Canyon Charter School pending board approval. And so the Coal Creek Canyon K-8 enrollment specialist has been supporting families as they're making their enrollment decisions and letting them know that that's one of the options that they can apply for in Enroll Jeffco. And then in January, after the board vote, we will update all families on the outcome of the vote. And then after round one closes, then the lottery process will begin. And if the school was approved, then they will be part of that process in assigning students and sending out offers. Any questions on this process?
Board members, any questions?
I have just one. Just to be clear, if the board were to vote no, those families that had selected application to Coal Creek Canyon Charter School, what would their options be?
Would you like me to speak?
Yeah, so we would work with our enrollment specialists to talk with those families about their options, which could be to choice into another school, or they can stay at Coal Creek for one more year. We would run, I'm looking at Lisa to make sure I'm saying this right, we would run the kindergarten through 5th grade program as is, most likely with some split grade levels, which we have there now. And then the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, if they want to stay at Coal Creek Canyon for the 24-25 school year, would have adult support in the building, but be enrolled in Jeffco Remote Learning Program. And then it would close that next, after the 24-25 school year. I think it's on the 2nd or 3rd slide. There we go. Do you want to add anything to that, Lisa?
The only thing I would add is that for the middle school grades, 6 through 8, they would default to the boundary. They could also have a place at the new boundary school, which would take effect the next year, which is 3 Creeks. So if they live in the Jeffco attendance area for Coal Creek and they're in grade 6 through 8, they could also have a place at 3 Creeks.
Thank you. Anything else? Dr. Varda, anything?
Sure. And I know that we already got an answer to this a little bit, but I thought I would just ask it now. Excuse me. Most schools getting started take some time, to recruit students and get settled in the community. Dr. Adico, can you talk about Jefferson Academy's plan for kind of weathering that growth, I can't think of the right word, curve or whatever it is that might be required. So specifically when, I've been thinking about, will they have enough families to maintain? We saw the proposal of their budget, and they proposed a very conservative budget, which I thought was smart and a good thing to do. And I just wondered if they don't, if we don't make that, what might happen and how long might they have of, a plan to see how well it gets implemented?
Thank you, Dr. Varda. JA is presenting right after us, so I'll allow them to answer most of that question. But at a very high level, they have been engaging with the Coal Creek Canyon community extensively since September. And as you heard in public comment, the community is very excited to have an educational option like JA, and they've had some really robust community engagement around enrollment. But I'll allow JA to finish answering that question.
So we do have a second stage to this presentation. Is that what I'm hearing from JA? While they're getting ready to come up here, I just want to say all the members on the board know how much work was put into finding a good solution for the Coal Creek Canyon community. They really, truly are unique, and it was clear. I am very excited to hear tonight that the public testimony from someone that was very active and vocal in the process, and her enthusiasm now just really, I thought, was wonderful to hear. So I'm looking forward to hearing from JA now. Thank you.
Hi, we're excited to be here. My name's Tim Matlick. I'm the executive director at Jefferson Academy. I have actually been in Jeffco schools for 22 years in the charter sector. Started as a principal at a different charter school, then was able to work inside the district as a community superintendent for charters, and then have been at JA for the last 6 years. So right off the bat, and then I'll let Mr. Quintana introduce himself, but right off the bat, I have to say this process has been pretty exciting because the partnerships that have developed through this process have been great, and we'll get into that in the presentation, but just right off the bat, I just wanted to say that, and thank you for letting us be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Flavio Quintana. I am the chair of the JA board. I am a retired State of Colorado Department of Revenue senior executive. I spent many years in my career running programs at a high level at the department, operations, budgeting, policy implementation, that kind of thing. I have a junior and a 7th grader that have attended JA all the way through. And so what I would like to just add to this on the onset is that when Tim came forward and said there was an opportunity for us to potentially salvage this situation, obviously for me, my first question was, do the finances work out? And to Tim's credit and his team, they've done a lot of stakeholdering, a lot of probably conservative budgeting to also include, how does the community up there feel about JA coming into their space, and how does that coalesce? And I've been very happy with Tim's work, and want to offer him, our greatest gratitude is from the board, because he's done a lot of work to really put us at ease to say, hey, this is a viable situation that we, with our unique approach, can make this a viable situation for the community up there, for the families up there, as well as bringing those individuals into our fold. So I'll turn it over to Tim and let him provide the presentation.
So once again, I just want to thank the district leadership as well as their staff. We pushed a little bit back at the very beginning, saying if we're going to make this happen, it has to happen really fast. And so this whole expedited piece is our own fault, and we are paying dearly for it because it was just a lot of work in a very short period of time. But I think it gave us the best opportunity to make this happen. So just a little bit about the school. So Jefferson Academy started out as an elementary school, and then they added a middle school and they added a high school as they move forward. So we have an elementary school that's core knowledge based. The high school is college prep based. Our Summit Academy programs, those are programs for homeschool students. And so we have one in Westminster, one in Littleton, and one in Conifer, with a total of about 1,100 homeschool students in those programs. We're also pretty excited about the Hope House Partnership. That's a program for pregnant girls and teen moms in the Arvada area. The district has services for kids that are in the central and south part of the district. And so when we were talking to Mr. Kohler and some of the other departments, this was a way that we could support pregnant girls and teen moms in the north area. So we're excited about that partnership. JA was established in 96 or 94, one of the very first charter schools in the district. I think there were 3 that started at that point in time. I think there were 8 total in the state at that point in time. And so it's been around quite a while. We're hitting our 30th anniversary. As we go forward, we are a John Irwin School of Excellence Award winner. We've won it every year that it's been out there. We're not the only ones in Jeffco. There's a handful of other schools in Jeffco that have done that. I'm not going to tell you who they are. Could. I looked at it just because I'm competitive. But there are some other schools that have also won it every year since it's been available. The thing about the John Irwin Award, those are for schools that basically show excellence over time. So you exceed state standards on a regular basis is how you win that award. So just something that we're excited about. Not going to go through our history, but put that in there so that you could see it. But what I did want to point out is 3 different pieces of the fundamental core of Jefferson Academy that I think apply to Coal Creek Canyon. The first is the mission, and the section that I picked is to help students attain their highest academic and character potential. And so the goal of Jefferson Academy is not to be an extremely high-performing school where we, in essence, sacrifice kids to look good on test scores. That's not what it's about. What it's about is taking those kids and figuring out how to help them do as well as they can. And I think that's a core value that started way back in 1994. I met with 5 of the 7 founding principals or founding board members when I went over there and said, why did you start JA? And it turned out that most of them had special needs kids, and they wanted a high-performing school that served kids with special needs. And so that's a value that is intrinsic to the school. The vision envisions a community of parents, teachers, students, and educational and business leaders working together. I don't know that there's a better example of that. You had an example tonight earlier, but this is also a great example of the district, the charter, the community in Coal Creek Canyon coming together, businesses up there coming together to try and make this work. And then our core value number 6 is we are invested in educational partnerships and intellectual curiosity. And those all tie into what we're doing with the school. So I worked really hard to find a better word than super fast, one that was like really nice, and I couldn't come up with one that actually said what I wanted to say. So this has been a very, very fast process. Normally it takes a year, year and a half. And with the blessing of the district, we pushed this through in 2 months because that is what we thought was our best opportunity to serve those students. So if, as you saw earlier, if the contract is approved, then Jefferson Academy would take over in July of 2024 and open the school. And if not, then the district would continue forward with their plan. So what we've heard is, why is Jeffco closing Coal Creek Canyon? So there was declining enrollment. Students left for some COVID. Students moved to homeschooling. That's kind of been a trend across the country. Some students had to leave when programs closed. When the before and after school program closed, those parents that needed that support had to go down the mountain to get that support. And so this is my information. This is not coming specifically from the district. And so this is what we've seen. And I want to be really clear on the numbers. These are my numbers. These are not Brenda's numbers. But as I looked at the budget, it turned out, based on the information we saw, that it was costing the district about $22,000 per student to educate students in the canyon. And all in all, they receive about, if you look at PPR mill levy and all in all, they get about $12,000 per student, a little bit less than that. But that's the buffer that they were working with when you have the 83 students. And so historically, they dropped from 149, 150 students down to 83 students over a couple of years. One of the problems that the district was having is that 12 of them attended JA or Summit. So we created our own problem out of those 25 kids that choice out of that area. So I don't know that those students would go back. I think they're probably settled where they are, but they're already in our program. So why JA? Our strategic plan goal number 4 talks about multiple pathways to success. And so over the last several years, Hope House is a good example of looking out there saying, how do we help kids? At the end of the day, it's about helping kids. And how do we help kids? And so when we looked at helping pregnant teens and new moms, that was a pathway that we had the opportunity, we had the ability, we had the know-how, we partnered with the district and that worked. We've had a couple other programs, but that's basically what we're looking at Coal Creek Canyon, saying, how do we serve kids? So JA, it's a high-performing established charter school. We've been around a long time. We have multiple campuses. And so the question that came up earlier today was, how do we change JA's mission, vision, and core values to serve the mountain community? And the answer is, we don't change the mission, vision, and core values. What we do is those stay where they are, but we change the practice to make it a mountain-based school. And so our 4 campuses that we have right now, they all have the same mission, vision, and values, core values, but it's implemented differently in every building. And so that would be one of the things that we would do at Coal Creek Canyon. The question also came up is, do they get to keep their eagle mascot? Absolutely. Because we actually have 3 different mascots already, one for the JA, one for Summit Westminster, one for Summit South, and then we would just add the eagles to that. And so, but I do think that's a key piece for the community up there, is the identity, the name, the Coal Creek Canyon identity, and the eagle identity. And so we're really trying to honor that. So some of the things that we looked at on the replication that we needed to do to make this successful, at the end of the day, this comes down to a budget decision. There's a lot of other pieces. We have the educational components. Coal Creek Canyon's a performance-rated school. JA is a performance-rated school. So it's not like it's a conversion school because the school's not doing well. So at the end of the day, it comes down to the numbers and how do we make the numbers work. And so excuse me, one of the things we looked at is we have to increase enrollment. We have to bring back lost families. We have to combine, and this is where JA has a little bit of an advantage. We had to combine the homeschool and the traditional school students. If we don't do that, this doesn't work. As we look at the numbers, I'll just be blunt. Even at 95 students that you'll see projections, the numbers don't work. And so the idea was, how do we bring them together? How do we restart the programs that were cut? Tricky piece will be restarting pre-K under a very fast timeline as well. Not only with some of the struggles that UPK has had, but also some of the facility issues that we may get into up there. And then, so what we did is we designed a program that would do academics, primarily academics Monday through Thursday. And so the school day would not be extended. It would still be the normal school day, but we would reduce the time spent on specials Monday through Thursday, extend the time spent on the core content, build in brain breaks and motion breaks for those kids. And then on Friday, we'd follow a model that we saw in Wyoming that's called Super Friday, where the homeschool students would actually join with the traditional school students, and all we would offer on Friday are specials and electives courses. And so the nice thing about that is you can take a choir that would normally have 6 kids with a school of 83. You have 6 kids in the choir. You add the homeschool students. Now you have 15 kids. Now you have a viable choir. You hit critical mass, in essence. The other thing it allows us to do is leverage some of the abilities that are up in the canyon. So the fire marshal up there, we've talked to about potentially coming in on Friday during a 6-week block, teaching fire mitigation in the mountain classes to the 7th and 8th graders. One of the challenges with Coal Creek Canyon is with a school that small, 7th and 8th graders, totally transparent. They don't want to be with the 5th and 6th graders. They want to be middle schoolers. They don't want to be upper elementary students. And so we're looking at how to do some of that and leveraging some of those skills that are up in the canyon. Super Fridays allows us to do that. Super Fridays allows us to have Friday field trips. Probably not in the first year because of financial reasons, but that allows us to do field trips on Friday without skipping core content. And my daughter's an electives teacher, and I was a phys ed teacher, and all the elective teachers will be mad, but that's kind of the way it works as we looked at this. So on the right side, what you'll see, I'm just going to jump down to the bottom. Letters of support. We did not ask for a single letter of support, by the way. So as far as JA goes, that did not come from us. That was the community up there that reached out to everybody that you saw, that, and we put the link in there so that you could see them, including they're the ones that got on the Gilpin County Commissioner's agenda. We didn't even attend. And so this is all community generated, those 16 letters, which is, I think, really interesting. Moving forward, this is some information from the district that they put out regarding Coal Creek Canyon. This shows the enrollment over time as well as the enrollment going forward, their projections. Ours are a little bit different than theirs. The reason we put this in here is when you look at the budget numbers, you can actually look at the enrollment. You can go back here and see what it might work out wise financially. And so as you look at the budget, you'll see that. You'll see that 28% of the kids choice out and 30% choice in. And so I think one of the things that's really important is being sure that we work with Gilpin and Boulder Valley families that are in that area because their best option is Coal Creek Canyon, and their options get much worse after that. It becomes really, really difficult for them. So as we look at replicating the budget, what we did is we took a really conservative approach to the budget, and basically it's a hard numbers game is where we came down on this. And so we're using the net of $11,539 per student. That is an all-in net. That means that's our PPR, that's our mill levy, that's a capital construction. So capital construction is money that charter schools get that districts don't to help pay for some of the facility costs. We deduct the 5% of the administrative overhead fee that we pay the district to purchase all the infrastructure that we use, Infinite Campus and all the other software, PeopleSoft and all that. We took off the funds that we pay the district for special ed and ELL services, some of the other things in there, and we came up with $11,359. We kept enrollment projections very conservative. We kept expenses high. One of the things that you'll see is that we are looking to see if we could continue to pay teachers up there at 100% of their district salary. JA pays 92% of district salary. And so one of the key functions that as we looked at it was these kids have seen a lot of turnover. Is there a way that we can actually keep the staff in the building? And the district was very amenable to say that they could stay there up to 3 years before they could come back to the district as traditional district teachers, and it would be a wash to them. And so another piece of the partnership. And then we did not include any donations and fundraising. Soft money, I do think there's a strong opportunity there, but we presented 2 budgets, one that has the federal grant. Neither of them have soft money at all. So this is all actual money that we will get based on headcount. And then the potential upside is that there's that 6% increase that the governor said that he hopes to give schools. Of course, if you've been in education long enough, you don't bank on it until May, sometimes June, sometimes July. And then yesterday, I think he came out and said that he really wants to pay down the $141 million budget stabilization factor, which should also be an upside. None of that is in this budget. So moving forward, these are the hard numbers. So we're starting to get into the hard numbers. There's 2 slides that are alike. So without the federal grant, in order to break even, we would need 92 traditional students. They have 83 right now. 21 homeschool, 20 half-day, and 20 before and after school students. Those are tuition-based. UPK for pre-K, and then tuition-based for before and after. Letters of intent, we have 25 letters of intent for students that said they want to attend school next year. 22 homeschool students said they wanted to attend. 5 said they were interested, but we couldn't figure out whether they were traditional or homeschool, so they're not in our numbers. And then you see the interest in pre-K and before and after. Pre-K, we don't know how many of those pre-K students are less than 4 years old. We would not open pre-K below 4 years old. It gets really tricky. And then on the right, this is what's encouraging. On the right, from the letters of intent, what you'll see is that there's 55 students in the first 4 grades and 40 students in the next 5 grades. And so one of the keys for the longevity of the school would be to retain the older students as they move through the program. And so there's some really appealing programs out there. Three Creeks and the other Arctic area schools have some appealing programs. And so one of the tricks to making this work long-term is to figure out a way to keep them in our building over time. And if we do that, it doesn't take long to get to 110, 115, 120 students, which is very reasonable to maintain. That really increases the margins there. If we do get the grant, then the break even in year 1 is 87 traditional students instead of 92, 20 homeschool students, 20 and 20. So those are the hard numbers as we look at that. So some of the great things that have happened. So we have a great partnership with the district, even with CDE. So CDE, we were late to the table because of the timing of all this. We were late to the table to apply for the grant. CDE said, yep, you can still apply for the grant even though you missed the first training sessions. And so that was great. Very friendly lease from Jeffco. So it could be up to 10 years. It's based on $7.76 per square foot. That's $194,000. Basically, that pays for the cost of running the building. And so we would not be paying for an additional facility manager or custodian, snow removal. On the flip side, it's a good deal for the district as well because they're not paying for that either. So we will cover all that cost. So it's a break even to them, and it also keeps the cost down for Coal Creek Canyon K-8. So it's a great partnership there. We did ask the district if they would be willing to donate furniture, fixtures, equipment, curriculum, materials, supplies, and technology, and the vast majority of it was a yes. Basically, they're almost willing to lock the door and walk away. Now we have built in some money in the federal grant that says if we get the grant, then over the next 2 years we would replace some of the older equipment. We would replace the technology because much of that technology is basically at the end of life. And so we would use the federal grant to do that. But that really helps with the transition piece because the first 2 years are tough. And then school lunches, district said that they would continue to provide school lunch up there. It does cost them between $12,000 and $15,000 more than they receive from the state and the federal government to do that. That would be the cost that the school would absorb. We would probably come back to the district and say, let's look at all 3 buildings and how does this balance out? I don't know what the answer would be to that, but that's kind of the plan on how we would do that. And then, once again, these are the hard numbers. I won't go through all of them, but basically it shows the break even of 87, where the star is the green star. That is with the grant, 92 without the grant. And then you can work the numbers backwards as you look at 120 kids. If we had 120 students, let's say, in 3 years, then the break-even budget down the bottom with the homeschool students would be $295. We'd be in the positive for almost $300,000 at 120 students without the grant. This is a couple years from now with homeschool students. If you look at the number without homeschool students, it doesn't work. At any place across the board, it does not work without the homeschool students. The one piece I want to add is homeschool students are funded at 0.5 FTE, so it's a half a student funding is what it is. And then just a couple quick things I'll throw out. This came from a presentation to the Jeffco board back in October. This shows a slight increase in birth rates over the next 10 years, and then it begins to diminish again in the Jefferson County area. So these are not our numbers. This is what was presented before. This also shows a slight increase in the birth rate over 10 years, and then it begins to diminish. And then what's interesting is this one, I don't know that it correlates with the other ones, because if the number of families that have parents 25 to 44 increases in 2030, but yet birth rates decrease, that's an interesting metric. So I don't know the answer to that, but it was just an interesting piece of data that we're looking at. So what are the hard numbers? I know this is different than you've normally seen. Usually it's a rah-rah piece about how it all works, but this is a hard numbers game. The hard numbers are that with 87, 20, and 20, and the grant, break even gives us $1,800 is basically where it ends up at that. Without the grant, we need 92. That gets us at break even. If we have the projection of the 95 homeschool students, 95 traditional school students, 21 homeschool students, that gives us a 4.5 student margin between the money that would come in and what we have budgeted to go out. So it is really close in year one. After year one, it gets easier because we do think we'll have some of those families coming back. So wrapping it up, just on the right, is this possible? Yes. Is it tight? Yes. Is it guaranteed? No. Is the budget too conservative? Maybe. But we really wanted to produce real numbers. We didn't want to produce bogus numbers. These are real numbers. And then will the school grow? Data shows it will. So as we look at the trend, and we look at the 55 kids, if we can hold those kids, and if we look at the birth trends, I do think it'll grow. I don't think it'll grow past 120 and 140 students. I think that's where it would stabilize somewhere in those numbers long term. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Adiko. Or questions, I don't know.
Questions from the board?
In your experience, do the number of students who actually enroll generally reflect the number of people who have indicated an intention to, or does that tend to be higher or lower historically?
So my experience on that is not as someone that has open schools, but more in the community superintendent role at the time. It really varies on some schools. So some schools actually open, and you could probably address this better if you have more experience on the DPS side. Some schools open with more students and send in letters of intent, and others, something goes wrong and it just doesn't even come close. There's been some that have missed their numbers by a couple hundred students.
Yes, we talked about this at the district application review team meeting, and Claire Takar from the strategy team shared that Coal Creek numbers tend to be a little bit tighter because of the mountain community and the community's love for the school. So we think that it will be closer than in most cases.
I have two quick questions on the grant. When will you know about the grant? And is it a multi-year grant or is it a one-time?
I think they scheduled it for January 11th, right after. No, I'm kidding. I think it's at the end of January is what I heard when they will decide. We applied for it's a 3-year grant, so we applied for year 0, which is this year, to help with the transition, year 1 and year 2. And the reason we did that is because it's restricted on what you can spend money on. And if we missed year 0, then there's a lot of things that we could potentially do that in year 0 that we cannot do in year 1, such as fund an administrator. So we can actually fund an administrator in the startup year or in the pre-startup year, but not in year 1. And so we have some of those pieces built into that.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Thank you for explaining the 3-year agreement with the district for the teachers. I appreciated that. And I'm looking at the numbers. It looks like there's a 2-year projection. I'm wondering, over like 5 years, do we feel like, what I'm hearing you say is that we feel like we're going to get to a place where we're maybe around 100? What I really want to know is, like, are there families in that area that have young children who are not school aged yet that are going to be looking for a place to be? That's what I'm wondering.
So this just comes from a conversation I had with Parks and Rec and one of the other groups up there that said that when they did their Easter egg hunt, they have never seen so many kids as this year in the Easter egg hunt, which would be the youngers. And so I think one of the key components is bringing in the pre-K to start that pipeline and really get them ingrained in school first and early. And then the other piece is the before and after school is critical to be able to give those parents that need that option an opportunity to attend that school rather than go down the hill. So those are interesting components. Year 1, year 2 are really tough. As we run those 55 students through, we graduate 7, pick up 12. The numbers are never huge. All right. They're small numbers. Just so you know, as we compare this at Jefferson Academy, one grade level is 112 students. So we have 700, we max out at 775 students, K-6 at the elementary. So this is smaller than one grade level. I think we will stabilize between 120, 140, 3 to 4 years in.
Okay. Thank you. My other questions are, what are the difficulties that you can project in receiving the grant? That's something I'm wondering about. Like, how difficult is that process? And can you help me understand that a little?
So I have never applied for a grant before, and I've always avoided being a reviewer on the grant. I just don't enjoy it. So what they do is you turn it into CDE, and this is to help startups, replications, and conversion schools. So this would be a replication school. They have about $14 million that they have to give out this year, or it goes back to the feds at the end of the year. That doesn't mean that we're a shoo-in, because there are certain things that have to happen. It's federal money, so it's highly regulated. In that process, the district actually becomes a fiduciary agent, so the money resides with the district, and it all works that way, and that way we make sure everything's fine. I'm guessing the likelihood is pretty high that we would get it. At one point, we decided we were not going to apply, and then we got a call from the Schools of Choice unit at CDE and said, please apply, because we have money we have to give. So, but that's based on nothing.
Great. Another question I have, this is more a personal charter philosophy question that I'm wondering. If there was a family with a young student who had decided that they did not want to promote their student to the next grade for that student's maybe social emotional well-being, academics are fine, but not the social emotional piece. What is your practice around including parents in decisions about holding students back or promoting if the parents are advocating to maybe hold back? That's what I'm wondering.
So as a charter school, we don't have a waiver to that district policy, so we follow the district's policy on that. And so basically it's a conversation between the principal, the parents, and other educators in the process. Normally that's a collaborative answer that they can come to, but at the end of the day, unless the policies change, if I remember right, at the end of the day, it's the principal's decision as to whether they will or won't promote or not promote. So, but normally that's handled collaboratively, but it would be the same as a district policy.
Great. And there's no from your perception, there's no negative consequences for a charter school like yours if a family chose to stay back. Is that right? There's not additional pressure on a charter school to want to promote kids up for numbers. Okay.
The last time I think there was pressure was when there was half-day kindergarten and people wanted to retain in kindergarten the second year, but they only get funded for half of that. That was where there was some pressure, but that's been years.
Okay. All right. Those are all my questions. That's it. Thanks.
Dr. Varda, do you have any questions?
Well, sure. I just first I just wanted to say thank you for your application. And I was Mr. Madlick. We talked about this when I was visiting. I've been concerned, that we wouldn't have an application or that this wouldn't happen as we went through the process of deciding to close the school. So I know how much work that was, and I also had the pleasure to come and tour JA all the schools, 3 of the campuses, And it's just an excellent school. And I think everything that you brag about with the school is true. And it's nice to see when we're there. So I think this will be a great service to Coal Creek. And I really appreciate also your very honest kind of declaration that it's a numbers game. Obviously, that it becomes a numbers game for us in thinking about keeping a school open or closing a school as well. So my question was just, and in that honesty, have you all talked about what if we don't make the numbers, and have you all thought about how long you'd be willing to kind of give it a try? The question I asked Dr. Adiko, I think some time ago. I'm just wondering how you all have thought through some of those contingencies as well.
Sure. So I'm gonna let Mr. Quintana answer that as well. So when we presented this to the board at JA, basically when we started programs, we've always been able to start them without dipping into other funds, but we've always had reserve funds to serve those kids if we needed them. And so with a budget of about $1.4 million, I mentioned to the board that what I will probably come back with is a request for about $2.5 million or $250,000 set aside for year one and year two in case we need it to dip into it, because I think that after that we're stable. I did not ask the board for that money at that time. We were waiting to see what the Jeffco board would do. Didn't want to make a pre-commitment to that until the Jeffco board made their decision. So that would be, if it's approved, that will be coming up in a future board meeting. I'll let Mr. Quintana address it from the board point.
Sure. So I think where the opportunity really lies here is obviously JA would do everything to make sure that the continuity of the school would continue. But I think and Tim put it in his presentation, is that there really isn't any allocation for funding or any soft money from the parents. And what we've heard from the parents is that there is an appetite for that. So just like what we do with our partnership with our other parents, is that we would look at that and say, is this a viable option for us as well, so that we can explore that to get us through those first couple of lean years, which I think is really what's the challenge going to be for us.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, and thank you so much for this great detail. I really appreciate that. You mentioned a facility lease agreement for up to 10 years. Do you own your other buildings, and do you usually own them? Or what is your goal or your plan for leasing or buying it?
So the elementary and the secondary building, we have private bonds on, and we will end up owning those. Eventually, the homeschool programs, we lease facilities. Homeschools are a little bit more tenuous, and so there's a funding bill in front of the CDE right now. We were actually down there yesterday when the superintendent spoke about school codes passionately, because we were also speaking about the homeschool rules and regulations that they're looking at. In the canyon, it's a little bit tricky. There's 10 acres up there. There's a back area that they use for mountain labs, in essence. And so the question would be, does the district want to maintain that property? Does the district want to sell that property? Are we in a position to be able to purchase that property? It doesn't make any sense. There's no way that 83, 95 students, even 95 students and 20 homeschool students can afford that property right now. Originally, the district was talking about a short-term lease, 2 to 3 year lease, which I don't think worked in this scenario, and so they came back very amenably to a 10-year lease, saying let's do 10 years. And then what that looks like, if they were to section it out to sell it, would it just be the property? Would it be the property in the 2 fields? Would it be the property 2 fields in the back acreage? We don't know yet, so we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. And would the charter application that you that we'll be voting on, would it be a 5-year charter approval?
Statute requires that initial windows are at least 4 years, but I believe the superintendent would be recommending would be recommending a 5-year term.
Okay. And is it at the end of 5 years that we would revisit the lease situation, or could that happen anytime?
The facility usage agreement would be separate. And so we could revisit the facility usage agreement on an annual basis.
Okay. And then just for clarification, I think you were talking about possibly coming back and asking the board for I think you said $250,000 or something around there. Can you tell me again what that was for, what you're referring to?
So that was the Jefferson Academy Board, not the Jeffco Board. And so that would be just money in reserves. So that if we miss the numbers, meaning if we need 92, 20, and 20, and we come in at 90, 20, and 20, I really don't want to put these families through this again. I mean, it's a hard thing to do. And if we miss the numbers by 22,000, that doesn't make any sense to me that we would close the school. And so that would be a buffer that we could use. If we can't cut the budget to make it work, that would be a buffer that would be available to us to make that work. So one of the other things that we've been talking about, the community up there has said that they were interested in fundraising the difference between what JA pays and what the district pays on salaries. That's about $52,000 to $60,000 all in, including para and everything. So if they actually fundraise that money, then that gives us that $60,000, $55,000 buffer, and that gives us a little bit more room to play. I think they have a pretty good chance. Pretty aggressive. I think they have a pretty good chance of doing that, which is not included in the budget again because we just gave you the hard numbers of what we can count on.
Great, thanks. Any other questions?
Can I ask one more?
Sure.
I'm really excited that you are considering pre-K. I think that's just amazing, and I think especially for families everywhere, it's really important. I heard you start with we're doing 4 and up because that's the universal pre-K. Is there a potential in the future to go to 3 and up, or are you sticking with the universal pre-K funding from the state?
I'm just going to be transparent. I don't want to get into diapering.
Fair.
It gets really tricky when you get into diapering. It's different regulations. It's different staffing.
Yeah.
It gets really hard, especially in a small building, to do that. So I don't really think that we would consider that.
Awesome. Thank you. Any others? Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. You did a lot of work, and I'm really thrilled with this possibility for a solution. Thanks.
Thank you for hearing us.
For our next topic of discussion this evening, the board will study a presentation by independent consultants, FLO or FLO, not sure which FLO, FLO Analytics, analyzing the census data of our 5 geographical Jeffco Board Directors district boundaries to determine if the population is balanced across director districts. As a reminder to the board and our listening public, every 10 years after the release of the decennial U.S. Census, Jeffco Board of Education Director Districts should be reviewed in order to ensure compliance with Colorado state statute that each district is reasonably equal in population and as contiguous and compact as possible. This process, called redistricting, is important in ensuring that each board member represents about the same number of constituents. The proposed district director boundaries must be approved by the board. Director district lines will not result in changing school or articulation area boundaries. Before I hand this over to Ms. Tollison, to briefly introduce this topic, Superintendent Dorland, is there anything you would like to add?
Thank you, President Parker. Ms. Tollison sends her regrets for not being able to join us this evening. She's feeling under the weather. And so I will be here, and Ms. Verlew will be here to support this conversation. And because this is a matter that will have legal implications at some point, Ms. Tollison wanted me to share with the board that she will be here and available as the board considers this information and moves into the first part of 2024. She'll be here to provide legal guidance as necessary, but we should be just fine this evening without that as we hear from our partners at FLO Analytics. And so with that, Ms. Verlew, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Dorland. So we are excited to have our colleagues at FLO Analytics joining us virtually today. We are, as we approached this work, we have FLO on board to do our boundary study, and we were able to do this work to look at our director districts as an extension of that work they're already doing, which has been great because they're very familiar with our district and have a lot of information that is helpful. So I'm going to hand it over to them, And I want to let you all introduce yourself. And are you planning to show the presentation from your screen, or would you like us to show from ours?
We can project it.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. All right. Are you all able to see this okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, really appreciate that introduction, President Parker, Superintendent Dorland, and Ms. Rouleau. So we are very privileged and honored to continue our partnership with Jeffco Public Schools and work on this board redistricting project with you all. So tonight's presentation, we're going to provide a brief introduction into what redistricting is, and then talk about your current board district boundaries and the population assessment of those boundaries, and then discuss the process and what this project will look like over the next several months. So I'm joined here by my colleagues, Kay Doran and Emma Swanson. My name is Rebecca Wright, and we are here representing the FLOW team. And I know that there's a few new board members, so just a brief introduction to who we are a GIS consulting firm. We work with districts across the country, and we also work with local governments as well on political redistricting projects like this one, as well as the boundary projects that we're also working on. And something that's really important to us and this work that we do is that we provide a nonpartisan approach to this work. So we've never worked for any political party. We always approach redistricting from an objective, transparent, and data-driven approach. So that's very important as we start looking at potentially analyzing not only the existing boundaries, but working with the board to determine whether any changes need to be made to ensure that the population across those boundaries is balanced. So to talk a little bit about what this process is, so as President Parker mentioned, this is a process that's done every 10 years after the release of the U.S. Census. And so the Jeffco Board of Education Director Districts will be reviewed to ensure that they are primarily reasonably equal in population and as contiguous and compact as possible. Those might be new words for y'all. They're very familiar to the redistricting group, but we will be talking about what those words are. We'll be defining them later on in the presentation, as well as some new additional words in addition to that. So just to provide like a brief introduction, that this is considered what redistricting is. We look at all of the current boundaries for the director districts and determine what the population is within each of those districts and whether or not they are reasonably equal in population. According to y'all's process, this needs to be done by March 1st of next year. And just as a general note, and as President Parker already mentioned, since all board members are voted for at large in Jeffco, any potential changes to these lines will not impact voting whatsoever. Jeffco residents will still continue to vote for all members regardless of whether they live. So that's just an important distinction as we move forward with this process. So in terms of timeline, so this is our first of 3 presentations. Again, this will be an introduction to the process, and we'll review your current district boundaries and the populations within each of those. And then we will be coming back to y'all in January to present a series of draft maps for your consideration. And then we will come back with a final map or map options in February that incorporates any feedback that we receive on the draft maps. So we have already done the data collection and the initial assessment of your population balance that we'll be presenting tonight. And then we'll be working with you all and the district team and the board to develop draft boundaries as the next phase of this process. So in terms of what we look at when we're thinking about redistricting and looking at the current boundaries and whether any changes should be made, is first of all, any redistricting process must be done in compliance with all local, state, and federal laws, and that includes the Federal Voting Rights Act. It must not be done to favor or disfavor a protected class or political party. Districts must be population balanced. They must be contiguous. So when we're talking about contiguous, we're thinking of districts that are not separated out, that they are all in one place. And we have a picture on the next screen. If you're a visual learner, that kind of shows what that means. And then also compact. So all together, that they're not squiggly lines. And then in terms of things that we should be looking at, so we're looking at preserving communities of interest. So in the case of Jeffco, that would be like articulation areas and local neighborhoods, and that they should preserve the use of existing natural boundaries, as well as much as possible, be composed of whole precincts. Something in particular that is relevant to Colorado state law is that director districts population assessment takes into consideration the number of individuals who are in confinement at correctional facilities. So those individuals, they are removed from the population assessment, so they are not counted as part of those numbers, and that's per state law. All right, so again, going to those definitions. So when we're talking about contiguous boundaries or contiguity, you'll see that it essentially means that the district is all one. There's not like a hole in between. We're not looking at it for any islands. When we're talking about compactness, you're not looking for spaghetti lines. You're looking for one whole district that is compressed together. And then when we're talking about existing or natural boundaries, we're looking at major streets and roads and any sort of rivers, any sort of lines that are already being used as boundaries as well. All right, so after this initial review, we will be discussing draft maps in the next presentation. So those draft maps will be developed using the current district boundaries, and they will be population balanced. So we will make sure that they meet all of those federal and local redistricting requirements that we mentioned. But again, they're not expected to become the final map. So they're really a starting point for conversation about when we're looking at maybe potentially making changes to the boundaries, what changes could be made in order to balance out those population, the population in those districts. And it's really a starting point to get feedback from the board as to whether or not those are the right changes or if we need to be making other ones. And then after all of that discussion and all that feedback is received from the board, we will present at least one final map that for the board's consideration, and it will include all of that feedback that we receive. Again, it will make sure that it follows all statutory criteria, and likely it might be a compromise between input we receive and statutory requirements depending on the level of the changes. So that is a very kind of high-level overview of the process. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kate Doran, to talk through your assessment of your current population balance.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. So our current district boundaries that we're looking at here, we've got 5 districts, and they're in these 5 different colors. So we won't go too much into them, but you can see they vary in size, but they all were 10 years ago population balanced. So you can picture that there's more population centers in the smaller district boundaries. We'll go to the next one. So when we talk about balancing population for this process, we're talking about total population, not other measures of population like the number of registered voters or the citizen voting age population over 18. This is reflecting a principle that the board is representing all of the residents within the district and not just the people who are eligible to vote. And then when we talk about, we'll talk about deviation from the ideal population sometimes. So the ideal population is the total population in the district divided by 5. So the current 2020 census total population divided by the 5 districts, that's the ideal population that we'd like to have in each one. But, we don't need to split hairs along parcel boundaries or anything like that to get it exactly equal, but we do need to try to get it under 10% is good, and then under 5% is even better. So the deviation between the highest population district and the lowest population district, when we balance everything out, we're aiming to have it under a 5% difference between those two. It means they're pretty equally divided. So looking at why we have to do this, you can see in the 2010 table there at the top, the range of the deviation between the highest population district and the lowest. The highest was District 4, and the lowest was District 5. So the difference between those two was 4%. So we, were under that 5% 10 years ago. Now, when you take the current district and the new population information,
you can see that that range is now 15.2%. So we've gone over 5 and we've gone over 10. So we need to get that balance back out again. Then you can see the district population over under the ideal there. District 3 is the one that's 10,000 over that kind of average ideal number that we would want for that district. So that's the one that really grew the most, which I think leads us into the next table. So we've got a difference in population over the last 10 years. You see District 3, everything grew. Population change went up over time, but District 3 went up by 20.5%. So that kind of really took the district balance out of alignment there. And so that's what changing the boundaries will even that back out again. That's why we do this every 10 years, because sometimes you see a lot of development within 10 years. This is a map of population change. So really kind of briefly, the orange and dark brown areas are under 100 people in 10 years changed, grew by. The purple, light purple area is 100 to 1,000 that it grew by. And then you can see the dark purple area there, which is along Candellas Parkway, grew by over 2,700 people in those two areas each. So that's the area you're looking at where a lot of population change happened. So that's what we're seeing in District 3. The demographics of the area, we look at this at the beginning of any of our processes to determine if we need to be making sure that we're not packing a district or breaking apart a district that might have a minority, that might need a majority minority population. But since there aren't any populations that are over 20%, where you would need to maybe be aware of having that demographic more represented in a district so that they're not disenfranchised or split apart. That's not something that we have to look at for your process. But if we're, talking about neighborhoods or things that need to be, that need to stay together, or articulation areas, or, other factors that Rebecca was talking about, those factors can play into where those boundaries are. And we also look at the citizen voting age population for this metric as well for the demographics. And again, we didn't see where we would have to focus on trying to create a majority minority district based on the demographics in the district. So this zooms in on the top part of the district. So you've got District 1 there in the blue, District 2, 3 in the yellow, District 2 is green. And you can see that we've got the articulation areas on here. In most cases, you can't see the articulation area boundaries because they fall directly within the district boundaries. However, where you see these navy blue lines is where articulation areas and district boundaries do not align. So you have golden articulation area falling in 2 different districts. You have Green Mountain there falling in 2 different districts. And then if you go to the next map, we'll kind of move down to districts 4, which is the pink, and 5, which is the orange. You'll see Bear Creek is split between 2 different districts, and so is Chatfield. So you've got some areas where you've got the full articulation area inside of that director district, and then some areas where it's split between the 2, and that might have been for population balancing before. So I believe we are going to try to align them with articulation areas as best as possible, but we do need to keep that 5% difference between the highest and lowest population districts. We need to keep that in mind. So if we can do it, great, but it's not always how it always works out with where folks live. I think we are going to try to keep it as aligned as we can.
So this is just kind of a wrap up. That was the assessment of the population balance that Kate just went through, and our next step will be creating draft maps to bring to you all in January for your consideration. And again, those are just a starting point for the conversation. It just presents some options that will balance the population across the districts, and then you all can let us know how you want to refine and edit those boundaries based on the criteria that you all have as a board in a district. So with that, I thank you very much. We appreciate the time, and we're happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you so much. Questions, board? No? Dr. Varda?
Sure. Thanks for the presentation. I wonder in that last piece there, will you make recommendations strictly based on geography and numbers? And like you said, right now we split some articulation areas, and maybe going forward that might have to happen again to make those numbers balance. But have you ever recommended, maybe this is out of your area, changing the articulation area boundaries rather than splitting an articulation, like saying we'll move one articulation area into another articulation area so we can follow a boundary that now matches numbers wise?
So this process is only looking at the board district boundaries, and so we will be presenting one of the draft map options will be the closest alignment that we can make to the articulation area boundaries without going over that 10%. But in terms of like articulation area changes, that would be a different conversation.
Okay, and when you make those recommendations, are you all kind of, the only thing I can think to call it is like on the ground, understanding like municipal plans for big road changes or different developments? I know up north where you're paying a lot of attention, I understand there's like a major road getting moved to another area so are you aware of all those kinds of things that are happening within communities and decisions municipalities are making?
So we are aware of some development plans because we are working with you all on the boundary project. So because of that information, we do have some knowledge of that. When boundaries changes are made as part of a redistricting project, you are supposed to look at the current population as opposed to like future growth. But if you all as a board decide that that is one of your criteria that you want to be included, that can definitely be something that we include in our analysis as well.
Okay, and sorry, one last one. As far as I know, as a board, we don't have set criteria. Hopefully I didn't miss the meeting. So is that the kind of thing that like is normally set at this point, or when do boards that you work with usually publish or present the criteria that we're going to consider as we consider your recommendations?
So if that's something that you all, if you have things that you all want presented in the draft maps, then that's something you all could let us know tonight or soon. I think we're trying to get the presentation to the district leadership and the board at the beginning of January. So with the holidays, that's cutting it a little tight. But if you all have things that you all would want to let us know, we can definitely incorporate that into the draft maps. And if it's something you all want to let us know after the draft maps, we can incorporate them in the final map. So there's plenty of time for you all to let us know how you want us to develop those maps.
Okay, thank you.
And Dr. Varda, I can speak to that a little bit too. So we intentionally launched this process as soon as we could after the election, so we could get started. And I will be working with President Parker on getting some feedback from the board on the things that you all value, so that we can seek that and provide that to Flow, so that they will have that over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Thank you for that. Excuse me. I do have a question. You mentioned the fact that the way we vote for school board members, they're at large, so it doesn't affect voting when you change the boundaries for districts. However, is it not possible that a director will be redistricted out of their position, and we could end up with 2 board members in the same district?
So one of the things we are going to be looking at is the current locations of seated board members and whether those would be impacted by any changes to included in the draft map options. So that's something we're working with district staff to analyze as part of that analysis, as part of the draft map option development.
Thank you. And yes, Director. it turns out I do have a question about accuracy, actually. On slide 17, it's showing that Chatfield is in District 2, but President Parker, that's your articulation area, isn't it? And you are District 5?
Yes, I do have the high school. I don't have all of the elementary schools.
That's right. We have that weird thing. Okay.
So I appreciate that you'll take into consideration where we all live right now. Have you ever had an experience when you've drawn redistricting maps where it did end up, and this could be something for our legal team here, what would happen if a director is drawn out of their district?
Yeah, I would defer to your legal counsel, Julie, about that question.
Yeah, but we definitely have run into, two folks living really close to the lines for the district, and that's where the population was, and that it needed to move. That area needed to move to a different district in order to balance the district, and that's the highest priority. So it depends on where folks live, but I think if folks are generally, it doesn't happen that often. We're typically able to keep people in their districts.
Okay, thanks.
I'm happy to follow up with Julie on that and just get her thinking about it, maybe ready to provide some guidance when, and frankly, if, that ends up being an issue, but hopefully it won't be.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll just add that it is something we've considered and are talking about, and there always are board members seated in the districts they're in any redistricting process, I believe. And it's unique in Jeffco where we vote at all positions are voted at large. They're doing a similar process in Denver, but as we know, in Denver you vote by just the people in your district. So it's something I think we can have an answer for you tomorrow.
Great, thanks. So thank you so much for the presentation. We look forward to some drafts to look at. And I think that's the end of this agenda item. Would we like to take a brief break? I would. Anyone want to join me? Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break. Thanks. Okay, we're back now from our break, and our final presentation this evening is reserved for the board to receive an update on planned upcoming engagements with the Jeffco Thrives Alliance. Since early 2022, Jeffco has convened an alliance of Jeffco stakeholders to provide critical feedback on the school district's strategic direction. The alliance shaped Jeffco Thrives 2025, the district's strategic plan, and more recently, its work to reimagine the high school experience. I now turn this over to Superintendent Dorland so she may inform the board and our listening public about the ongoing work of the Jeffco Thrives Alliance. Superintendent?
Thank you, President Parker. And if I need some support, my friend Lisa Ralou will jump in and help me with anything that I might need as I walk through this presentation with the board. Also, President Parker, I will use this as my superintendent update this evening to allow the board to have more time for their updates after your consent agenda. I do want to just say that the Alliance has been a group of individuals that has been pretty much anyone in Jeffco who wants to participate, sometimes in the hundreds, to come together and really help us with some key work that we needed to ensure we had stakeholder feedback on. And so you can see on this slide, they have provided valuable ideas, suggestions, and feedback on our overall direction as district. In 2022, that was related to helping us create Jeffco Thrives 2025, our strategic plan. In 2023, they have this year provided input on High School Reimagined, which has been very valuable. And as you'll see in a minute, we are going to pull the Alliance back together starting in January of 2024 to identify investments for a possible future mill levy override. Here are the dates that we have sent out. I think the invitation has gone out a couple of times now to a listserv that we have of people in our community who care deeply about Jeffco Public Schools and might want to come to the table for this important conversation. The kickoff and start and State of the District meeting will be on Tuesday, January 9th. These meetings will be from 6 to 7:30 at the Ed Center. And then from there, the point and purpose for our kickoff will be for an opportunity for people to hear about the state of our district. And in particular, most likely the state of what we're doing and how we're doing it, probably related to Jeffco Thrives, but also the state of our district financially, which I'll talk a little bit more in a minute. And then from there, we will be breaking into some interest-based subcommittee meetings. And those meetings are listed below in late January, late February, March, and April. The idea is that those subcommittees will work on specific aspects of potential investments and work we might want to engage in for our students, and then come back to share with one another to help us create what might be a final plan for a possible mill levy override in 2024 or 2025. And so you can see on the next slide that we would like to think about exploring future opportunities for Jeffco to maximize our local revenue to support community-driven interests. And some ideas that we know have come our way through meetings like my superintendent community meetings, as well as some of your town halls. I believe you've heard of some of these things, and just conversations with our staff and students. You know, we know instructional excellence is a core component of Jeffco Thrives, and we need it to be delivered by highly talented and competitively compensated educators, staff, and leaders. We've talked many times about how we are not keeping up with market for our educators, our ESP staff, as well as our administrators. And so we need additional funding to compensate our employees in a way that honors and respects the important work they do with our students every day. We have heard interest in learning environments that are safe, modern, and foster extraordinary student experiences. And so many of the important conversations we've had around school safety, for example, increasing campus supervisors, district-funded refresh of things like cameras in our schools or other safety investments could be part of this type of category. And the third would be graduates who will enter a complex and changing world, having discovered and explored their passions and potential careers. So we know that, as you know, we are engaged in a high school reimagined project led by Dr. Kim, and we would like to be able to have some funding source to be able to invest in some of the experiences and ideas and programming that emerges from those conversations and that project. I want to share with you, as I have before, but also for our listening public, that part of the interest here is making sure that our broad community really has a better and deeper understanding of how schools and school districts are funded in the state of Colorado. We are funded through a complicated finance formula in the state. And the complicated formula defines what's called our total program. And local property taxes definitely contribute to our total program, but also a state backfill or equalization contributes to our total program. Those are the two sources of funding that make up the majority of our general fund. And what is so interesting to me, and I've been talking with our communities about as I've done my superintendent community conversations, is that when property taxes increase, which I know has been a large part of our state's conversation and our district or our county's conversation, when our property taxes go up and property owners pay more taxes, it does not mean that the school district gets more money. What it means is that the local portion of our total program through local property taxes increases, but the state backfill or the state equalization decreases, and our total program remains the same. And so that is an important myth that I believe we need to make sure people understand is we need to make sure it's busted. And so that will be part of helping people understand the state of Jeffco. In addition to that, local school districts can go above their total program in funding by passing what we know as mill levy overrides and going above and beyond or overriding the state, the program mills that you will levy actually next month. And so in Jeffco, we have done that several times, and I can show you a history of the mill levy overrides. Well, what we haven't done different from other districts around us is maximize the amount of overrides that we can collect with our voters. Other districts have. If we were to maximize our overrides, we could generate additional revenue between $50 and $60 million. Other districts have maximized their mill levy overrides, and so therefore they have their total program, and then they have a lot more revenue on top of it because they've maximized those mill levy overrides. In addition, other districts have tied previous mill levy overrides to inflation. So with CPI every year, their amount of money that they collect in that mill levy override also increases. $10 million that was passed in 2003 might be worth $15 million today in another district. In Jeffco, we have not tied inflation to our previous mill levy overrides. And so the $10 million that we passed in 2003 is still worth $10 million today, which, as we all know, is not the same amount of money as it was in 2003. And so we need to begin educating our community about this and the challenges that we face financially as a school district because of it, and begin to talk about, as a community, how much appetite and interest do we have in doing something about that? Part of why we struggle with things like compensation and staying competitive, or programming that sometimes our families say, in our neighboring district of Littleton, they do this, this, and this. Why can't we have something like that? We are struggling to keep up financially with other districts around us. The school closure work that we've done, I think, is going to have positive impacts and was a smart, difficult, but smart financial decision. And that being said, we are still behind. And we will be talking soon about compensation and salary and how we compare to other districts for various employee groups. And it is true that we are behind. And so just want to highlight that for the board and for our listening public, and make sure that the board knows that we will be pulling together the Jeffco Thrives Alliance, hoping that some of you can be at these meetings to listen and hear what our constituents are saying. Invite you to all of them, or as many as you can make it to. But we will be making sure that you are updated about this work as it begins and moves forward through this spring. And just invite anybody who's listening to this meeting who might be interested or knows somebody who should be interested in coming to an alliance meeting to pass the word. And you can go onto our website and find information about how to indicate your interest in participating in the Alliance.
Thank you, Superintendent Dorland. Directors, are there any questions?
I have one.
Yes, Dr. Varda.
Thank you, Superintendent Dorland, for the overview, and the intention of the work going forward is clearly important. So thanks for all of that. I wondered with the Alliance, I love, and I've heard you say so many times, like, if anyone wants to come, please do. You know, you're always welcoming everyone for it. But are we inviting anyone with intention, like making sure that some specific groups are represented, either from different sectors, you know, business who might be interested in this topic, to government associations, and also, you know, people in our community, to just, are we outreaching to just make sure that our representation is diverse?
Yes, we have a listserv that includes all of the categories of individuals that you just mentioned, other elected officials, parents who are involved, business and community leaders. In addition to the broad invitation that has gone out, we have been doing some targeted outreach. And so do you want to add to that, Mr. Liu, in terms of like what we have been specifically doing?
I think one of the other things we've done, Dr. Varda, is you know, we have lists of folks who have attended other things who have an interest in Jeffco. So, for example, you know, we had a high school reimagined breakfast that involved industry partners and our local chambers. The invitation went out to all the folks who attended that. We've had some at Jeffco. Anybody who serves on a district committee now. All the elected officials and city managers. So we have quite a robust list. And then we also encourage board members to pass along the invitation. If you did not get that in your email, we're happy to share it with you. We attached it to the board agenda item, but we are definitely making some targeted outreach. And in addition, we'll be, you know, putting it out there generally. We anticipate that the first meeting, we were talking today about ways, I know the beginning of the year can be really challenging for folks from a calendar perspective, so making sure there's a way for folks to see that on demand, the presentation from that, and then make a decision about coming to future meetings, not having really missed the content from the first meeting. So we'll continue to evolve it, and certainly happy to have you all pass that along and take your suggestions as well.
Director Kenworthy?
I'm just wanting to check in and see, are there going to be interpretation services at these?
Yeah, we're working with Ms. Pena's team, who, you know, is in really working to connect with different stakeholder groups across our community. One of the things that we will have interpretation services if they're needed. One of the things that Ms. Pena has talked with us about in regard to our Spanish-speaking families and or families who speak other languages is that sometimes they prefer that we come into their community. And so I anticipate that we will be working with Ms. Pena, her team, our strategy team, Ms. Relou's team, Dr. Kim, to make sure that we have opportunities for meetings within our communities that might need us to come to them and might want us to come to them. We have, for example, in the past, I know, Dr. Kim, I can't remember what some of the topics were, but we have in the past gone into communities and actually conducted the meeting in Spanish. So that the interpretation services were needed for those of us, those in the room who didn't understand Spanish, and have really leveraged and been so grateful for the staff that we have who speak a language other than English to support those kinds of facilitations. And so that's gone really well in the past, and we've been thinking about how best to make sure that we have diverse representation in the conversation, even if people cannot come to these dates that we have identified as at the Ed Center. We still want the voices of those stakeholders to be involved in this process and guide our thinking about where we head.
Director Applegate? When we talk about the interest-based subcommittees,
Are those subcommittees that will be identified, or do you already have those categories?
So what you see on the slide here are the categories that we plan to start with, just because they come up often when I'm talking with our community and others on our team talk with our community. How are you taking care of our staff, right, is a question that's often asked. Lots of questions from our families about safety. And, you know, when we go out and talk about reimagining the high school experience so that we have clearly defined career pathways, opportunities for coursework that are relevant for our students and exciting for them to experience, and the opportunity for internships and an internship and career exploration experience for our students. People become very excited and want to be part of the work. And so these are areas that we have identified because it's what we're hearing. It's aligned to Jeffco Thrives, and we believe it's what our community has been telling us. But we will structure the process so that the group who joins us for the Alliance and any others who we talk to along the way can provide suggestions for other areas of interest for possible work. And we will then define the subcommittees based on people's reaction to these three that we might suggest or will suggest, and then other ideas that emerge.
Wonderful. I think this is great engagement.
I have two comments. I think I participated in something similar to this in 2015. And I remember that during that time, there was a lot of presentation on budgeting. In fact, I got a great big binder. And I think it's helpful. I think you've indicated already some myths that need to be busted in the community. I think if we can make it smaller, it would be better. And just to reiterate what you said, the mill levy overrides are money that really can add to our income, and as opposed to just the straight mill levies that we don't get it because the state lessens the amount that they backfill if we increase our share. So anyway, that's one thing I think that's very important for the community to know. And the other thing is, since we did close all these schools and we have a lot of property, there is this idea that we just sell the 16 buildings that we closed, and then we'll have a lot of money and that'll solve the problem. But just differentiating between capital money and the general fund, what can go towards our staff and our people versus what money goes to the capital budget, I think is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Reed.
Okay, well, if we're chiming in things that people need to understand, I also think that people need to understand what we pay for when we talk about administration. Because I think that people don't understand that all of our school security comes out of the administration part of the budget, that special ed comes out of the administration part of the budget. Because I think one of the myths that's out there is that we have this very bloated administration that doesn't affect schools, when in fact a very great deal of what is part of the administration's budget directly supports our schools. So I think if people understand that more clearly, it will also help.
Okay, well, we look forward to the first meetings and see where we go from there and for updates. Thank you. So this brings us now to the consent agenda. Items 5.01 through 5.18 are presented in the board docs as a proposed consent agenda. Do I have a motion regarding the approval of the consent agenda?
I move to approve items 5.01 through 5.18 on the consent agenda as published in board docs.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Are there any comments from the board members? Dr. Varda, did you have a comment?
Yeah, sorry. I wasn't sure if this was the time we could talk about it. I just wanted to point out that I had some questions about some of the costs on the consent agenda. And I just wanted to just communicate that we had our response from the district. So my question was on the amendments to the contracts, how much do those total? How do they impact our total budget, and where is the money coming from so that we can understand how we're paying for those extra costs? And it's the same question that we've been asking, and the district's been really responsive to throughout this whole program. And so from on the consent agenda, from what I understand, only the addition to the budget on the Stober firewall and site drainage is new cost to us. Everything else has already been presented to us in different formats. And so that includes all of the costs to Wheat Ridge as well as Fletcher Miller. So nothing has really, I wasn't quite sure if these were new costs or these were costs that we've already discussed. And so it still keeps us above balance on our capital reserves. So I'm grateful the district gave us that clarity before the vote today. So thank you.
I do want to clarify one thing, Dr. Varda, thank you. What's that?
Did I get it wrong?
You did not get it wrong. You did not get it wrong. I just want to remind the board, when we decided and talked about the Fletcher Miller project, and especially for our new board members, we do have a line item currently in the budget, and I'm going to make sure Mr. Gatlin agrees with what I'm about to say. So please clarify for me, Mr. Gatlin, if I get it wrong. We do have a line item for the architectural services related to Fletcher Miller right now. And then we had talked with the board about, being able to fully fund the actual project through some additional transfer in the coming year, and possible grant money with the BEST program, which we are getting ready to write and submit, and potentially some other funding sources that might be coming our way in the next budgeting cycle as we think about one-time funds that could be identified for the purpose of Fletcher Miller, including some reserves in our general fund balance. So I just want to make sure to clarify, Dr. Varda, that this does not include the full amount for Fletcher Miller, because that project in particular, I believe we've discussed at length, will be funded from multiple different funding sources and over time as the contracts come in and we begin the project. Did I get that? Yes, I'm getting a thumbs up from our Chief Operating Officer. Thank you, Mr. Gatlin. Does that help, Ms. Varda?
Mr. Varda, the new one.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I guess I also just want to clarify. I think that you all have been really clear with us on what the plan is for paying for Fletcher Miller. And so these costs, I didn't expect them to pay for all of it, but the expected costs that were already communicated to us. So thank you for your clarification. And I think you have been very clear on how we plan to pay for Fletcher Miller and the other costs involved for the other projects.
Yeah, and thank you for continuing to ask the question. So what does this mean in terms of what we have in our capital reserve and capital improvement program? So thanks.
Yes, Director Kenworthy.
I just wanted to clarify, when looking through the document about staff terminations and resignations, does resignations include retirements? Is that part of those numbers?
Does the personnel report include retirements? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Apparently that was a really good question because I didn't know the answer either. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thanks.
Okay, if there are no more comments, roll call, please. Ms. Savada?
Mrs. Applegate?
Yes.
Ms. Kenworthy?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Dr. Varda?
Yes.
Okay, and that leads us to the final portion of our meeting right now, and those are reports from board members. What's happened since our last meeting, or anything that you would like to add to tonight's meeting? Who would like to go first? Director Kenworthy.
Thanks. I made notes earlier today, so I'm just excited about that. Okay, I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve our community and students as a board director, and I want to thank, especially right now, our music educators across the district, especially as they're undergoing winter concerts. I was at one last night, and it was beautiful, as was the presentation from Ralston Valley earlier this evening. And so I'm just exceptionally grateful for the work that's happening in our music and arts programs across our district. I also wanted to lift up that we had our legislative breakfast. And after that, I had an opportunity to tour Warren Tech for the first time ever, and thoroughly enjoyed my time there and seeing what the students are up to. I was completely impressed and blown away. I'm excited to visit the other locations. And I'm also blown away by the chocolate croissants there. Those were amazing. I also want to just lift up gratitude to our community and our district staff for what has felt like a productive and supportive launch for me in this new role, and to the continuing board members for their insistence around a coordinated orientation and onboarding process. I am eternally grateful. I want to also thank my family for their grace and patience with me as I adjust to the time demands of this job. What else did I want to say? Especially gratitude for the previous board for their policy work review that's been done prior to my arrival. I've learned a lot in the last 9-10 days, and I'm full of gratitude for the work that has happened before I arrived up here on the dais, and I'm excited to continue that good work. I'm impressed by students who've reached out to me with questions and concerns. Most of the emails that I have received since I got my brand new email inbox have been from students, the majority of them, with questions and issues, and I am thoroughly enjoying being able to respond and have conversations around things that our students are concerned about. I also wanted to say that this is a holiday rest and renewal time, feels especially important at this time of the year, and so I'm holding in particular those families for whom this time of year presents grief or challenges. Our schools must not turn into political battlegrounds at this time, or really ever. And the world is wide enough for different lived experiences and religious beliefs so that we can coexist without requiring validation from one another for who we are as unique individuals. Our educators, our staff, our volunteers, and our students, you are almost there. We are all almost there. Breaks are necessary for us to refuel our patience and resilience for our next lesson or the next chapter or our next adventure. And so we all, I think, deserve a break. And I'm looking forward to being back here in 2024. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? Director Reed.
All right. Well, I've had a few things that I've had the opportunity to do. My first town hall, which was it was fun. We haven't done those before. And I'm hoping that as the word spreads that we are doing town halls, that more and more people will attend. It is a great opportunity to get a chance to hear from people and speak to them directly. Being in the mountain areas, I already knew from correspondence that the transportation is an issue, but being able to actually have a conversation about the solutions that the district is working on and what their challenges are, I think was really helpful. As we talk about the arts and music, I had the opportunity to go to the Jeffco High School honor choir concert, and just beautiful. The kids just are incredible. Every time I go to one of their concerts or an art show, I'm just amazed at the talent that we have in this district. I've had the chance to visit Foothills, Divinity, and Green Mountain, and just exciting things going on there. Kids look happy. They are definitely well into the semester, and so that was very good to see. It was really wonderful to get a chance to get to know our two new board colleagues when we were at CASB and have a day-long retreat. And I just feel like we immediately hit a really good rhythm and some really good conversation. And I think it bodes well for the next 2 years. I am very pleased to tell folks that the conversation continues to focus on kids first and foremost. And someone had mentioned, as we made this transition, that we should always have sort of that imaginary small chair with that small person. And I think that that presence remains as a part of this board. And so I'm feeling very excited and very hopeful about the time to come. And in general, just really enjoyed the CASB conference. I love having a chance to talk to people from other districts. It's always interesting to hear, especially from people from rural districts, how different things can be. And I had the chance to just speak with such pride with folks about our district and our relationships with our cabinet and our superintendent and our involvement in schools. And it really cements for me the pride of being part of Jefferson County.
Thank you. Director Applegate.
It has been 9 days, and I told someone this morning, it feels like we've already been in these seats for months. And a lot of that is in tribute to the district and to the cabinet, who has really, and the sitting board members who have really, and the exiting board members that really made an attempt to get us up to speed. I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of learning, and I really appreciate and I am impressed by the patience and the support that has come from the district and the cabinet and the community and my family, my husband and my kids for this new gig that we are doing. I also attended a winter concert last night, and I was struck at the classroom management of my son's elementary school music teacher when he commanded the entire stage full of elementary students. It was very impressive. So, but we are also a receiving school, and one thing that struck me was that we were at our articulation high school, and there was not an empty seat. The entire community came out and supported us, and it was pretty impressive when people walked in and there was not an open seat to be had. So just a feeling of gratitude for community support for the schools and the work that our kids are doing. I am really excited. I feel like now that we have this meeting under us to get into it, I'm really excited to start school visits. I've also been really appreciative of the reach out that we've gotten. And so just really in a season of gratitude, also to tell our teachers you are almost there, and our staff, and our students and our administrators, because it's a lot. And so we appreciate the work that everyone's doing, and I wish a very happy holiday to everyone.
Thank you. Director Varda, did you have something?
I don't have much to add on top of some of the similar things that I've been to with you all, but I am proud, I guess, that I made a point to visit all of my schools this fall, and it took a lot of effort, I think, on Ms. Zavada's part to help me coordinate that, and I appreciate her support, and especially all of the principals who receive us at these school visits and take time out of their days so that we can spend time with them and learn about their priorities and their concerns and things like that. So I got to all of the charter schools in my area except one, and all of our neighborhood schools except one. So my plan for the new year is actually to spend more time with parent groups and community groups, and I've already been invited to a few, and I'm super grateful for people reaching out. I've said, please invite me, and then people do. And so I think the town hall that we had was exceptional. People show up and come out and talk with us about what they're concerned about. And I just think there's nothing more important than us to be able to hear from all these different people who are impacted by the decisions that we make. So I'm looking forward to that in the new year. And I actually, one thing I've never mentioned, I even got to go to Foster K-8 and meet the principal of the day, who won, like one of the fundraising goals, and the assistant principal of the day also. So I really appreciate the school there for inviting me out, and the principal for having me get to come do a traditional school visit, but with little tiny people. And they asked me questions and they toured me around the school, and it was just amazing. So we always talk about how we don't get a ton of joys, the joys of education, the joys of the kids at the board table, because we deal with such hard things. But it's been a real pleasure to get really into the schools this fall. I think I have a performance to go to every single night except the one that I missed tonight, and wondering if I'll go to all the others. But it is a concert week, and our our art and music teachers are out there in full force this week, spending all kinds of time after school in the evenings, both to prepare for these and then be there. So and the staff, everyone that shows up for these things. So thank you to all of them, and to all of you all for being such great colleagues. So I hope everyone also has a good holiday, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Thank you, Dr. Varda. I will just say that I am enjoying my steep learning curve as president. I'm realizing I have to pay attention to everything, and if there's a lull in the meeting, it's probably because I'm supposed to be doing something. But I am enjoying it. I just couldn't tell you really what day of the week it is right now. But also, I was excited to have my first town hall meeting. I learned a lot from the questions that came up, and I appreciated that there were some parents that their kids weren't even in school yet. They're so proactive. It's pretty impressive there. I also, when I go out into the community, for instance, I was getting a manicure, and the teacher, or the person sitting next to me, was talking about her role as a teacher, a math teacher. So I asked her how she liked illustrative math. And she looked at me and she said, "How do you know about that?" And I said, "Oh, I'm on the school board." And then she kind of looked like, what shall I say? But anyway, we had a nice conversation about it, and she thanked me for being on the school board. And she said, "I know it's a thankless job." And I felt like, no, it's not. It's not at all. The things that you hear up here, the things that we're doing that, from month to month, it just fills us up. Going to a school, seeing those kids, whatever complaints we get in emails or phone calls are way overshadowed by the thrill and the joy of being with the kids. Also, I've enjoyed meeting our new board members and relearning some of the stuff as they get on board. The CASB conference was good. I went to a breakout on for presidents, the role of the president. And it was, again, fascinating to see what happens in a small district, a very small one, where they have 3 schools total, and they've got a 7-member board, for 3,000 kids or something. Anyway, it's always eye-opening to go to those events. I also had the thrill of going to the band concert at West Jeff Middle School, where my granddaughter is playing the trumpet now. And I'm just going to tell you, there are 48 kids in 6th grade band, 46 kids in 7th grade band, and almost 40 kids in 8th grade band. That band teacher, that music teacher, she rocks. And they were good. And I have to give her credit too for her class management skills, because I asked, "Do you have an assistant, in class? How do you get?" My granddaughter picked up the trumpet for the first time, and then how do you get started in that? So anyway, that was very exciting. I really appreciated the music from Walston Valley tonight. I hope that we can have this kind of presentation at all our meetings. It just highlights that the education our kids are getting is way more than just math and reading and writing, which we know are the basics, which we know are very important for success in life. But oh my gosh, doesn't that music add to the quality of life? And then finally, I just want to say that I have been working with the FIRST team recently. I am so excited that we have this new group. As many of you know, I am a court-appointed special advocate, and I'm working with a family now that's struggling so hard. And when the kids are struggling at home, they don't make it to school very often, and they have a lot of concerns. And the first team just stepped right in, and they are the focal point for 3 different schools where these kiddos are going. And I'm just thrilled, and I'm hoping to get some connection between the first team and Tara Pena's whole team, her whole group that she has, and the CASA community, because I think we can really work together there. So anyway, I'm overflowing right now with gratitude myself, and I do wish everybody happy holidays. And with that, it brings us to the end of today's agenda. We stand adjourned. Our next meeting is a study session scheduled at 3 p.m. on January 10th here at the Ed Center. Thank you. Happy holidays.
you.